So why are you here this weekend? What made you come out?
Because Earthbound is a magical experience unlike any other. I just was blown away from the first second that I played it that such an amazing adventure could be stored on just a Super Nintendo cartridge.
It's an RPG, but also not your average RPG. It's a very mixed bag of both adventure, comedy, and drama.
Everyone can relate to it because it's people like us. It's not knights fighting dragons, it's kids with baseball bats.
Earthbound came to us at a very pivotal time in our life where we were really struggling, and it was what helped us make it through.
I have been an Earthbound fan for like 5 years, and every single time I play any of the games, I start crying, without question.
Earthbound and the Mother games have really just kept me going.
It's a very emotional game, and I love it for it.
You know, what game can you say, what story can you say where it turns out that love really is the strongest weapon?
We're such an open community, and we love meeting new people. We love talking about the game.
It's brought me with so many friends here and elsewhere.
It's just like, whoa, you like Earthbound? I like Earthbound!
All the Earthbound fans have been just so nice, so accepting, and so loving, and just so passionate about the same thing. And I think that's kind of what this whole convention is about.
I'm most excited about watching the Earthbound Bash again, where they play through the entire game, because by having a huge crowd there together, we can really experience that again like it's the first time we played it.
Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker.
Camp Fangamer, a series of immersive conventions held in 2015 and 2016 in Tucson, Arizona. But what were they really?
It's a very good question. It was a interactive video game convention, telling a narrative across a lot of different mediums that typically are video game convention-esque, but in our case it was a bit more like Rocky Horror Picture Show in that it was interactive.
That's one description, but it doesn't really encompass all of it, does it?
I mean, I'm more than happy to accept both of your answers and not have to think of something. But for me, it was a lot of the things that we just like doing, which is telling a weird story, making people be creative, sometimes against their will, and then just kind of acting like goofs, I guess.
In addition to that, it was also an extension of something that we did in 2013, which was we called the Bash. It was just kind of a live broadcast playthrough that we did with the community, celebrating Earthbound and the fan community around it.
Yeah, because the game had come out on the Wii Virtual Console that summer, so we did a charity event with that. And I think a lot of people had watched that online and were like, we really want to come out and be a part of this. And so I think that also, in part, was why we were like, let's open this up to a bunch of people.
Well, where did the idea for Camp Fangamer come from?
Well, it was kind of tied in with the Kickstarter. Like, we did a Kickstarter for just a bundle of Earthbound-related projects, and it got way bigger than we expected. And so one of the stretch goals, we thought, well, let's see if we can do a convention.
But even prior to the Kickstarter, there had been a lot of Starman.net, like private conventions where people from the community over the years had like gotten together, and like many people always wanted to share with more people, but the infrastructure really wasn't there. And with this Kickstarter, it just kind of was a happy evolution and kind of accident at the same time.
It seems like it was also a culmination of a couple different things. Like you mentioned Starman.net, which is of course like the major epicenter for the Earthbound fan community, as it has been for years and years and years. From Starman evolved Fangamer the company, and this event, Camp Fangamer, was kind of like a massive reunion for people who'd never met before in person. One of the reasons it's so hard to explain what it is because it was so many things simultaneously. And you compared it to a video game convention, which is maybe a misnomer. It's an odd comparison. It's nothing like, say, a PAX.
Well, and that's part of the reason we ended up with the name Camp. Like, we didn't want con in the name.
Did you pull on any of your own personal summer camp experiences to create this camp environment for adults?
I'm going to bow out of this one because I never went to a summer camp.
What? And I never went to a camp either, and I think I might have been the person who suggested the name. There was something about, especially summer camp in fiction, that's such a like an intoxicating thing to me. The sense of having this alternate universe that you get to go to once a year. You know, you see people, you become incredibly close to them, then you leave that place and the rest of your life just kind of goes on exactly as it did before. There's something really fascinating to me about that, and I wanted that probably in part because I didn't actually have it and didn't have any of the negative memories that I would have associated with camp if I'd gone to one.
Yeah, I went to a summer camp when I was younger. It was a family camp, actually, so it wasn't something that I did on my own. It wasn't something that I really got to leave my life or my family structure behind for a brief moment and go explore myself necessarily. When I thought about Camp Fangamer when we were planning it, I was actually thinking more along the lines of what I didn't feel like I was getting out of other convention experiences that I had gone to. I always feel kind of like an outsider at these kind of large-scale expos or conventions, and I think part of that is that I didn't really have much purpose in being there myself. And so the thought of being able to give people an outlet to not only have some purpose in just being at an event and giving them motivation to do various things, such as be creative or play along with a story, it functioned as an icebreaker.
Well, you mentioned the story just there, and so we've talked about the bash that wanted to be a part of this, incorporated into the design of this, and the camp environment, and then there's the story, and really Camp Fangamer is the culmination of those things. So many weaving plot threads. How'd you guys design that story and that experience?
There's a certain type of storytelling that has kind of emerged over the last couple decades. Storytelling across multimedia platforms. A good example of this is, say your favorite character from a piece of media sends you a text message that's oddly personalized for you. That's a very meaningful experience. I realized we could use a convention as a storytelling platform, which started a few weeks before camp, where Pokey had actually taken over starmen.net and was advertising his websites on the starmen.net forum. People would click on these websites and eventually navigate themselves to Pokey's website, which was called realearthbound.net. And on this website, Pokey reveals that he had been banned from starmen.net and was going to be at Camp Fangamer to reclaim Earthbound.
Thank you. Hi, I paid for that camera, and everybody who's watching right now, we subsidized the tickets. They would have been $300 if it weren't for us, yeah, so.
Pokey and his family had bought out Camp Fangamer and were trying to co-opt the entire convention and essentially ruin it for everyone by making Pokey seem like the hero. It didn't really fit a format that people were familiar with, and so it was very difficult for people to have like a relative idea of what to expect. And so I recall there was a few meetings near the end of spring where I would try to update people on what the plans were. And a lot of it came down to, you're just gonna have to trust me.
I remember that. I remember at some point hearing about the endgame stuff. I assumed everybody'd be in the room and we'd all be like beating the game together. That's kind of a tradition, you know, at events like these. But I did not expect that we make the audience fight the final battle physically. I remember being incredibly skeptical when I heard this plan for like inflatable arms on this giant, you know, devil's machine.
And it was at that moment that Camp Fangamer turned into a Pink Floyd concert.
It just seemed like a very improbable Pink Floyd concert because we did not have a budget for any of that stuff.
Well, how did the set pieces get made? Because there wasn't just the massive inflatable. There's also with the Wheel of Obligation, a huge chamber of lights and motion, like an actual spinning wheel game show component, and then a bunch of other set pieces as well. Those are the most complicated.
It was one of the first ideas we had for it, and it just sprang fully formed from its name. Like I just said I want a Wheel of Obligation. And I didn't know what that meant, really. I just wanted it. Like, it felt like the right tone.
Yeah, a lot of the set pieces were made by a friend of mine who lives in the Bay Area, and who I don't know if he had really met any of the Fangamer folks prior to that.
I don't think I had met him. I
hadn't either.
None of us had, really. Then we would get these photos of these incredibly elaborate things that he was building, and it was like looking into like a mad scientist lab.
Yeah.
It was magical in a way, and also like, even if he can succeed in building this, how are we going to get it here? How are we going to set it up? Like, how are we going to, manage all this stuff? Like, it was just like you felt this thing building. You're like, oh, I can't handle it.
Yeah. Would that have been like a week before the convention that he showed up?
He showed up, I think, like 2 days before the convention.
Boy, was it that close?
It was. So I saw it happen.
Right before the convention is about to start, Travis, who I've never seen before, pulls up in a giant truck from the 50s or 60s. There's a 10-foot tall wheel of obligation sitting on top of the bed. And then Travis hops out, no shirt on, introduces himself very politely to all of us, and then we have to unload a wheel of obligation. It was like, this is a part of the ARG, like the alternate reality that I'm not party to, where this guy shows up dressed like exactly the kind of person who's going to build a wheel of obligation and wheels it into our storage unit. Camp Fangamer for me starts the instant I first saw Travis.
What I really love about Travis and people like him, we all kind of share this attitude of just having fun with the work to the point where it's not really work. The idea of how are we going to get this here, or how are we even going to get it into the venue, and all of that. Those are practical questions, but they don't really factor into how much fun it's going to be trying to make those things happen. At least in that case, none of us had ever done this before. And so there was this kind of thrill of, wow, we get to do this. We weren't really stopping at any point to say, how are we doing this?
Update, we're almost done unloading the 2 truckloads. The lightning and the monsoons are coming, and then we're going to start building. That's what I do.
The wheel was just one of many set pieces and props that he actually brought within that truckload. I remember he also had brought this power charging station that I had asked him to build, and then it had outlets on it, and I told him to make an odd number of them work. And yeah, we also even implemented that into like the treasure hunt. How many outlets work on the P Corp charging station?
Well, you really incentivized interaction with the camp and the landscape. You prompted people to not just count the number of outlets on the charging station, but also to go outside into like a barren field and find a sign for like a Minch development coming soon, which was also meticulously designed. There was a bag that people got, and it came with a little guidebook that prompted everything. People needed to acquire merit badges, these gorgeously designed merit badges, and the only way to do that was to follow the guidebook, solve the puzzles, and interact with the spaces. And there was an arts and crafts zone, there was the Stoic Club, there was a museum of merchandise from the Mother franchise, there were panels, some panels that were worked into the plot of the entire event, and you were either there or you weren't.
We made this device that basically lets you put stuff from real life into Earthbound.
Sort of forms a bridge between our worlds.
A certain person came in and sort of just took the device. So
Took it.
if you find yourself, like, you wake up, you're in the world of Earthbound, it might be pokey, like, causing trouble. So be careful out there.
This is the device that you stole from Mr. Tenda. Show him your signs, everybody.
I am against the hijacking of this convention.
I will serve
orders against all of you.
You hired him. You can't.
You guys can all keep quiet. It is a complete and total mess, and down with B Corp.
A lot of the first Camp Fangamer especially was just using material as creatively and thoroughly as we could.
What are we in line for? It might be a last-ditch effort by P Corp to win over the denizens of Camp Fangamer. You know, there's a lot of strife earlier today, and some palms need to be greased, and I got a palm that's pretty dry. Could use some grease.
Our pokey was pokey.
Welcome. Grab some merit badges out of the vase in the middle there. Quick photo for P Corp if that's all right with you. My photographer seems to have left us. That's fine.
He'd been perfect for the role before. Yeah, we had the fact of being in Tucson in July and being able to buy hotel convention space really cheaply because of that. It came all the way down to like, we got so much meat off the bone that Kevin, who was the general manager of the hotel at the time, agreeing to do a role as like a stuck-up businessman and just ad-libbing the most incredible like pro wrestling heel speech I've ever seen in person. And this wasn't somebody we knew. It wasn't an actor. It was just the guy who had to approve our convention.
I want to thank the Minch Foundation for finally recognizing my talent. It's about damn time. I have a few people I want to thank, but really there's only one that matters, and that's me.
Getting meat off the bone, that's a really fun metaphor. I think working with what you have is a really important thing for any creative works, in that provided you don't have independent wealth, you will never have access to everything you need or you think you need for what you want to make. Whereas if you learn to work with what you have and also play to the weaknesses of yourself and those around you, you can start to embrace what you're capable of and what's possible. And so having moments where things would go wrong at the convention, for instance, the wheel of obligation would occasionally kill the power for us for various reasons. We would always know that we could blame it on Pokey. You know, there was always these kind of fun things that we could spin it so that way it seemed like it was planned, and then that created a very fun environment of how much of this has worked out, how much of this is on the fly. And we got just very lucky in a lot of cases. Robert Krakauer, my old childhood friend, who was really born for the role of Pokey.
He owned it.
He did.
I mean, I can't imagine meeting him as a normal person.
Here's $100,000 for a party or whatever you guys are putting on. Just do me one favor. And then Reed Man, he says, what's the one thing you don't want? And I said, for you to talk about Mother 3 and bringing it to America and localizing it and using the word porky. So that was like the one thing. And that was it. So everyone's fired. You guys can leave because there's already music set up. I didn't expect this to be like a strong return on investment, ROI, that's what we call it in the business. But I did expect this to be not like a slanderous haven for criminals.
I think even Itoy was watching the stream at some point.
Really? What do you know his takeaway from this? I mean,
I think
wow.
he tweeted about it, didn't he?
He tweeted about it, yeah.
I think he tweeted that Robert was Pokey, which is the best possible compliment you can get.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So the stage show, for the first year especially, was insane because, Dan, you were running like a full late night talk show / game show for 2 days straight.
And it wasn't just like 8-hour days either.
No, it was very long. Before I even worked at Fangamer, I went to visit Lindsay actually during the first Earthbound Bash. Just kind of pushed my way onto the couch for part of that, and it went pretty well. Just $744 more. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna grease Reed up. We're gonna grease the suit up. We're gonna unzip it, and we're gonna shove him in on camera. When we were thinking about doing this again, that made sense. Like I volunteered to do it, and everyone said, yeah, that's all right. Why it happened I was on there the entire time is really like just down to in part to a neurosis I have, which is that if you can't be a professional at something, you should make it difficult to compare yourself to professionals. I didn't want to make it not like a late night talk show, but I also wanted to make it clear that there was something strange going on. And one of the ways I felt like I was able to do that was just to never leave the stage.
Hello?
Hello, is this Dan Moore?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Josh. I represent a small company called the Mafia, and we don't like nerds like you owing us money.
I'm a little distracted. There's an alien and a UFO expert and a beloved mascot
Yeah,
on stage with me right now.
This definitely sounds like a nerd convention. Listen, Dan, can I tell you a story about a guy named Vinny Ratz who owed me some money once?
Yes.
He owed me money, he didn't pay me, and I killed him. Is that a good story? I electrocuted him, Dan. And then I got my shotgun. Wait, let me get my shotgun. And then I watched the show Home Improvement. And then I grabbed my shotgun. Dan, I need this money by 7 p.m. tonight.
Okay, 7 p.m. tonight. Or else
7 p.m. tonight, no exceptions. Or I will come down there personally and chop it off. You know what I'm saying?
Kind of.
Like, it's really easy and a really fruitful way to lampshade being an amateur is to say, like,
You're doing it under duress?
This is happening in large part against my will. I'm going to be fired, and the Super Soul Bros are going to have to carry Pokey up on a sedan chair. Once I knew that that was what people were going to expect based on the narrative, like, I felt totally comfortable out there.
Well, there were a lot of interactive games. What were some of your favorite that were pulled off particularly well?
I liked any opportunity we gave people to, like, show their buy-in to the whole story on stage and, like, extend the story. I thought those went incredibly well. For instance, when Pokey brought people up to smash Earthbound cartridges.
Should they do it?
People in the audience weren't sure whether they were real or not.
My name is Jack, and I've never destroyed an Earthbound cartridge.
All right. That was like a perfect 10 minutes of Camp Fangamer for me, because everything, all of the constraints that we had built into our own, like, skill levels and budgets and audience, we just played right up to the edge of them perfectly.
Yeah, we didn't have a budget to use real cartridges.
I wasn't present for a lot of the staged games, but my favorite part, hands down, was the end. It was like a concert, like a really raucous concert.
Rock and roll. They sound like Werner with Herzog.
I'm ready to go. These things turned on. You like the smile that I told you? I had it the last week. But now, guess what? I'm part of the family. I'm part of you guys. Everybody, you're having a great time with your own stuff. It's not my family time, so I think it's a really good thing. How's everyone doing? Everyone having a good time? Good to see all of you. You're all such wonderful to keep up with this way. How's everyone doing? Does it feel weird to see you face-to-face suddenly? Yeah, I know, right? People behind you, people on the sides. This is great. It's all the foundation running and this is
My safety pins came out and started stabbing my foot. Yeah, I'm good. So that made it a little bit weird because I was trying to hold it.
How was it?
Really damp and sweaty and humid. You guys rock. Thank you for doing that.
no problem.
When I walk over balloons, they felt so, like, organic. I'm like, am I stepping on limbs? Like, people on the ground, I'm like stepping on calves and people's backs. I'll take care of the ball thing.
Okay. Was it any fun?
It was wonderful. Much better than the rehearsals.
Fantastic job.
Thank you guys. It was a wonderful time. And I didn't suffocate like I was thinking I might.
There was a boiling point, like a real boiling point, and it was pulled off so magnificently. It's one of those things that, you know, we can't even hope to express it here. You really had to be there. So one component we haven't touched on yet is that Camp Fangamer is actually a charity event, and you guys raise a lot of money.
Yeah, so the charity that we chose for both years of Camp Fangamer is Speak Your Silence, which is a nonprofit started by Matt Pipkin, my former roommate in college.
You know, I'm just so grateful for the way that my life has turned out.
I came from a great family, and now I wake up each morning to a wife who loves me and to a cat who either purrs or bites me depending on his mood. Things weren't always so peaceful though, because when I was just 6 years old, I was sexually abused by a trusted family friend. And then for almost 20 years, I kept it completely secret from everyone. I was just convinced that if my parents found out about it, they'd be devastated and would never look at me the same way again, and my life would be ruined. But finally, just a few years back, I told my parents about what happened to me as a kid. I then began to see a counselor, and much to my surprise, my life was completely changed. And what it really came down to was realizing just how valuable I am as a human being, and that I am truly worth standing up for. I gained this sense of value and freedom that I'd never felt in my entire life. And from that, Speak Your Silence was born. Our mission is to conquer the stigma of child sexual abuse. So this is where the stitch comes in. I love it. It's symbolic of voice frequency in its zigzag form, and when you're wearing it, you're literally wearing your voice and showing that you support others in sharing their stories. We'd be amazed if we knew how many of the people we see every single day are carrying a secret like the one I carried for so long. But now, there's something that every one of us can do to change that. By wearing the stitch, we show them that their lives matter and that we support them in sharing their stories. And you can be part of this by simply wearing the stitch.
He said that, as soon as we had announced the charity and what was going on and what the charity was about, people started coming up to him and just talking. It's like, hey, can I talk to you? And then people started sharing their stories with him right there at camp.
Wow.
Which is incredibly powerful.
And Pip is the right person for it, especially for an event like the ones we did. It's just another serendipitous part of Camp Fangamer. That was another resource that was available to us, that Pip and Reed had been roommates, that Reed knew that this charity was getting off the ground and that we were able to help it, and that its presence there was able to help people. It's just remarkable.
Clearly, both Camp Fangamers were very affecting for anyone who was there. Lifelong friendships were forged, like a real life Starman.net. What have you heard from the campers?
I've heard quite a few of them say, camp ends when we say it ends. And I think that's very sweet, because that's true. And they very much are the ones who created what that feeling was. Some came up to me and explained how they have dealt with very severe depression, and this was an outlet for them to be able to experiment in some cases. Some people said that they sang karaoke for the first time, and they got to dance around people for the first time. And I think that's just fantastic that they've given themselves an opportunity to do that. I'm just happy to hear that there's a support group now for people who maybe didn't have that before, and I hope that continues regardless of what camp continues to be or not.
Well, will there be another Camp Fangamer?
In a sense, who am I kidding? Probably. It's difficult to make them happen, but if I had to guess, based on my own knowledge of my character to this point, probably.
I think immersion is a really important word for Camp Fangamer, and you can talk about immersive experiences, and so many people talk about immersive experiences, be it in the video game field, in the press releases and all that, or even looking at something like a Renaissance Festival, or the work that Secret Cinema does, injecting people into the narrative of a film. But none of those experiences necessarily, or could even hope to, come close to what Camp Fangamer does, because there's so much emotional immersion. The closest thing you could get to that is a rock concert where you are maybe a teenager, your emotions are already high, you have chemicals in your body eliciting this emotional response, and you love this performer, and that's the only thing you can come close to going to an event with other people where you're going to have anything resembling the kind of waves of feeling that these events pull out of you. That's what's so impossible to convey. And you guys achieved it, thoroughly. And it's truly remarkable.
Yep. I certainly didn't expect it to work out well, so I'm glad it did.
I just want to thank everybody for watching this video, going with us on this journey. If you were at camp, hopefully it brought back some more memories, and if you weren't there, hopefully this somehow managed to explain what exactly it was. Thank you, Charlie. Do you have anything to add?
This interview's over.